Welcome to the podcast, Hopeful Horizons, the bridge where hope and healing meet. Our mission is to create the environment and resources to get people across the bridge from the post-COVID experience to a future filled with hope. Please welcome our host, Holly Porter, founder of Adventure Bucket Wish Foundation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, or welcome if it's your first time joining us. We just want to bring on another story. Everyone loves a story. Sometimes they're not the greatest story as far as the ending or the beginning or the middle, right? But that's how we learn and that's how we get our lessons. And so I have another guest with us today. Her name is Hinda Stockstill, and she's going to share her long COVID story. Everyone has a story, and if you'll notice, nobody's stories are the same. With COVID, a lot of them have crossover symptoms from COVID that created the long COVID, but they all, when you have 200, I did the math the other day, I don't even know what that number even looks like. There were so many numbers in taking 200 symptoms and timesing it by how many variations of those symptoms people can have in combinations, because I was just curious. I think I mentioned that on the last show. So I did the math. It's scary. Go do the math. I just stuck it on Google and did it. And the number, I couldn't even tell you. It had so many digits in it. So it just goes to show you there's just no two people that are alike. So welcome to the show today, Hinda. I'm happy that you're here.
Thanks for having me, Holly. I appreciate it.
So you were in the medical field, and I want you to share a little bit about how you got here, like how your life looked before and then when you got sick and then after, and what it did to you and for you. And I'm just going to let you take it from here and just kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, I actually didn't work in the medical field. I worked in healthcare staffing, so I did that for about 6 years. But back then, pandemic days, 2020, people were getting COVID. We were on lockdowns. We got off the lockdowns. People were waiting for the vaccine to come out. The vaccine had not come out yet. And my thing was like, I'm just going to lay low and try not to get infected. My neighbor got it upstairs and she was fine, but my aunt had it and she was in the hospital and she almost died. So I knew varying degrees of, who was catching it and who was getting sick. And I knew people that were losing people. So I got it from my boss. She had we were wrapping gifts for a charity. It was for Christmas. It was for a domestic violence, like a women's shelter. And we were just wrapping gifts for the moms and the kids. We had sponsored families, and my boss wanted me to come over her house really quick and wrap these gifts. And I didn't really think anything of it. I wore a mask. We were still distancing, but I wanted to get those gifts out, and I didn't want to say no to my boss. She's a really wonderful person. So went over her house. We wrapped the gifts. She made me dinner. I ate the dinner, and then I left her house. And about 6 days later, I was just sitting at my desk typing, and next thing I know, I just felt this wave of chills. And it was like the worst chills I've ever felt. They were like pulsating, and my throat started to hurt. I started to sweat. I started having diarrhea. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I was like, I think I might have COVID. And so I called my aunt and I told her my symptoms, and she was like, oh my gosh, you have COVID. Because my aunt had just got out of the hospital a couple weeks before. So she was like, you definitely have COVID. You got it. So I told my boss, I was like, I didn't want to scare anybody. So I said, I'm not feeling well. I need to go home. That's just what I told them. Because I didn't want to freak them out.
What year was this? Do you mind me asking?
It would have been December 2020.
Okay. So the first year. Okay.
Yeah, the first year. So I didn't want to freak them out. So I was just like, I'm just going to go home. And I went home and I was like, I don't know, maybe it's the flu. The symptoms they weren't like too bad. Just the chills just felt in the diarrhea. So then I stayed home for a day. I called off another day, and then my boss calls and she says, hey, so-and-so tested positive for COVID. We all have it. We got it. We were with you at the dinner party, and we probably gave it to you, and that's why you're sick. And I was like, oh, no. And so tried to get a COVID test, went to the hospital. They wouldn't give me one. They kept saying that they had limited tests. At that time, they were still denying people tests. They gave me a rapid test, which we know that rapid tests aren't always reliable. and it's the timing of when you take the test. So I tested negative. So I was like, okay, I should be okay. Well, the symptoms only got worse. I just continued to have 102 fever, chills from hell, body aches, this 5-day long headache. I don't know if you had the headache, the COVID headache. I had this horrible headache, sore throat, and then I got this really bad dry hacking cough that would just not cease. And then around day 8 or 9, I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like, I should be getting better. It just got worse. Basically, it felt like I woke up and I felt like a 400-pound man was sitting on my chest, that I could not breathe. I was so weak. Around day 15, I mean, this is how long the symptoms continued. Like 102 fever, coughing, chills. And so I called my boss, and I'm still calling off because I'm still sick. I can't get in to see the doctor because she's like, you have COVID. I know you tested negative, but we can't let you in. So we're just going to keep giving you doctor's notes. So finally, around day 15, I just woke up and I couldn't even button my pajamas or unbutton my clothes, take a shower. I fell down in the shower. I was so weak. I couldn't eat, and I just could not breathe. And that's when I went to the hospital. And I was like, I think I have COVID. You know, I was exposed to these people, but I was not given a test. Can I test? Nope, we're not giving you a test. You don't need a COVID test. We know you have it. What are your symptoms? And then I told them too, I was like, by this point, I had also lost taste and smell. So there were people still telling me I didn't have COVID because that was the confusion, was because I tested negative, but I continued to show symptoms. And the dead giveaway was me completely losing my taste and smell. And so the doctor said, you were exposed to these people that were sick. Okay. So the doctor told me I had COVID-19. They did some contact tracing, and they basically said, go home and drink Tylenol, or I'm sorry, drink Gatorade. Sorry, I got the brain fog. So they said, drink Gatorade and take Tylenol. It's a virus. It will run its course. They said, you're young, you're healthy, you should be okay. So I went home. I did what the doctor told me. Well, that fever and those symptoms went on for 40 days.
Long time.
I could not come out of quarantine because I continued to have this 101, 102 fever, and the cough and the chills and the diarrhea, and I just stayed in quarantine. I used up all the food, all the clothes. I had no clean clothes. Like, it was a mess. And finally, sometime around January 6th, when the riots happened, I missed that whole thing because I was in bed, but that's around the time that the fever broke. And I just remember having this intense brain fog. It was like I couldn't think, I couldn't form words, I couldn't form sentences. And then because I had been hunched over coughing like this and couldn't physically get out of bed for that long, I was left not only with symptoms, but I had also just like severe deconditioning. So I had to do physical therapy and occupational therapy for 9 months, respectively, to be able to walk, more than 25 feet, to be able to run again, be able to comb my hair, be able to button my shirt. I couldn't drive. I couldn't open a jar. There were so many things I couldn't even function. That's how bad COVID left me. I was really messed up, and I could have died. So it was pretty bad.
Yeah, that's crazy. And it's so many people's story, right? Just feel blessed that you're here to tell it. There's so many that didn't get to live, during all that. Wow. That's a long time though. I mean, because viruses really, if you think back, viruses usually maybe 14 days is usually maybe 21 at the top. So like you were double that, that's a long time to be sick. And I
Yeah.
hope did you have people coming and bringing you food and
Yes, I had people coming and dropping off food. I needed a nebulizer because I literally could not breathe and I kept coughing. And the doctor I had, she wouldn't let me have the albuterol for nebulizer. So my mom had to get my aunt's nebulizer. She had to get the albuterol and bring all that stuff to me. And I had some steroids that they prescribed, and I basically just, hacked it out. I just survived, but I was hitting that nebulizer. I was using that nebulizer 4 or 5 times a day because the cough was so bad. I had tremors in my hands. I mean, it was really scary. The symptoms I never experienced. It was nothing like the flu. nothing like a cold. I've had flus, I've had cold, I've had chicken pox. Like, this is nothing I've ever experienced in my life. And then, I went and saw a doctor, and she told me that it was all in my head, that it was stress from the pandemic. And I said, there's just no way. Like, it's been 2 months now, and I still can't walk well. I still am struggling to put words together. I still can't remember my middle name. I'm still having severe body aches and pains and chills. And then she took my temperature, and it was 100. The nurse took my temperature right there in the office. Is 101, and I'm like, anxiety doesn't cause this. This can't be in my head. Like, I'm running a real temperature. So I fired her, and I got a new doctor, and he was a very compassionate, understanding person. And I explained the whole situation and that I couldn't get a COVID test. And he said, I'm looking beyond the test results. I don't care what the COVID test, if you weren't tested or not. Because we have people that have not been tested, okay? We have people that have been tested too late. And we know that test isn't always reliable. So he said, I'm going off of the fact that you were exposed to these infected people. You got symptoms 6 days later, and your symptoms are, loss of taste and smell, shortness of breath, chest pain. You have everything on the list. He was like, that tells me that you definitely had COVID. But now we need to run some tests and figure out, did you have COVID and maybe another virus? Was it COVID and something else? Do you have something going on that made you susceptible, to getting the severe case of COVID? We don't know. So he ran gamut of tests. And then I also went to Cleveland Clinic, and they ran a ton of blood tests, and they found COVID antibodies, and they found that I had reactivated Epstein-Barr from COVID. So COVID took an old virus that I had a long time ago. I never knew I had it, and it was dormant, and COVID reawakened that virus. Then I had got diagnosed.
So many.
Yeah, and then I got diagnosed with POTS, post-orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So I had the high elevated heart rate. My heart's always in tachycardia. I can't stand for long periods. I can't walk too much without getting dizzy, lightheaded. I've got to drink a lot of electrolytes. And so I've got the POTS thing going on, and I've got post-exertional malaise. I had this ongoing fatigue all the time. I literally feel exhausted, and it doesn't improve with rest. It doesn't improve at all. I could rest for months and it doesn't change. But the Cleveland Clinic really helped me. We got a good combination of medications down. I take a drug called low-dose naltrexone, and that really helps manage some of the symptoms. I also take
by the way,
I also took a drug called fluvoxamine. That's a SSRI that helped with the brain fog for me. And the other drug that I took for a long time was an antiviral called acyclovir, and that helped manage some of the symptoms, and a lot of rest. I mean, years and years of rest. So a lot of the symptoms have improved. Some symptoms have gone away, but I've also developed new symptoms. And so that's a part of long COVID as well, is that you get, symptoms change. So now I have a bunch of hair loss and hair shedding going on. That I had that 3 years ago, and now it's come back. So it really is a roller coaster.
Of my hair. I know that was horrible, huh?
It really is a roller coaster. And if you don't have the support of your friends, family, and medical care team, you are left alone with nobody out there to help you. And you can get really depressed. You can become, trigger warning, you can become suicidal. And then there's people that just don't believe you. They just don't believe that COVID makes people sick. They believe all these crazy conspiracy theories about the vaccine. And I have to tell them, I was not vaccinated when I got COVID-19. So you can't say that it was the vaccine that caused this. I'm not vaccine injured. There are vaccine injured people out there, but I'm not in that subgroup. We know that I did not have any of these health problems prior to having COVID. I was a healthy 34-year-old woman with no pre-existing conditions. I wasn't elderly. So yeah, that whole notion of you have to be old or you have to have pre-existing conditions to get long COVID. You can be a perfectly healthy person at any age, any race, any religion, any kind of socioeconomic background. Long COVID doesn't care.
No mercy, not at all. Well, there's a lot of our guests seem to have gotten it in 2020 for some reason. That seems to be a lot of our stories. And what is awesome for me is to know that most of them are getting better. Like they still have issues. And me, myself included, mine was fall of 2021. and I was an extreme case, intubation and everything, and the long COVID. So I still have his issues, but it's taken me, so I'm on 3 years. You're on almost 4, right? Going on 4.
Yes. I'll be
Yeah.
4 years in December.
Yeah. So mine's just barely 3, hitting 3 now. But for about 3 months, I finally feel like, oh my gosh, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Because the symptoms, with 200 symptoms identified to it, that's everything. It's every organ. It's pretty much anything you can think of is linked back to it. And so when people say COVID wasn't even a real thing, oh, how does it make you feel?
Right. It's like you're telling me that I'm making this up or I'm involved in a conspiracy with the government. Like, that's crazy. Like, I would never lie about something like this. I don't gain anything by making this up. And by having long COVID, we lose friends. We've lost spouses. We've lost homes. We've lost medical providers. They fired us for being, too complex. We've lost everything. We've lost jobs. So I don't see what you gain from being sick. You're fighting with disability. I wish people with these disability workers and insurance people would understand this is not something that's psychosomatic. It is a physiological, it's a disease. It's physical. And then it has, mental manifestations. It causes changes in the brain that, make people depressed, suicidal. It can make them anxious and so forth. I mean, tachycardia, like, I've never had tachycardia a day in my life. So I just can't believe that people are telling me this thing is not real. I know what I experienced was nothing short of fake. It was pure hell. It was the worst. I would say I've gone through a divorce. I've lost a job. I've lost family members. And I would say long COVID is the worst thing that has ever happened to me in my entire life. So, yeah. And I'm sure, and I wasn't even hospitalized. So it's a spectrum. There's people that were hospitalized like you that were going all the way to intubation that have long COVID. And there's people that were never hospitalized and had a very mild case. So it varies.
Or no symptoms, but they still have long COVID. So it is all over the place. What do you think helped you the most of everything?
I think for me was joining the support group. I'm a member of the long COVID support group online on Facebook. Shout out to them. If it wasn't for those people, I don't know where I'd be at. We would meet
so that people listening can go check it out.
Long COVID support group. They're on Facebook. You just literally click the magnifying glass for the search bar and you type in long COVID support group, and you can join. They have a chat, so we chat. There's people you can talk to all hours of the day and night because there's people all over the world. A lot of them are in the UK, a lot of them are in the United States, but there's people from different time zones that you literally can talk to. And we meet every Sunday on Zoom, and so we have 2 meetings on Zoom, and so that really helped me because I was able to vent my frustrations with medication or medical care or not having an answer, not knowing why I'm, still having these long COVID symptoms. I mean, we were arguing sometimes, we would debate. I mean, we're dealing with the loss of something, dealing with grief. So when you join that support group, you are not alone. Those are your long COVID brothers and sisters, literally. And they are like family to you. So all the relationships I've built, and like when I just couldn't go anymore and I just didn't care. And I was like, I would say things like, I wish the virus just took me out and then I wouldn't have to deal with this. I had my long COVID support group people saying, we feel the same way. We're going through this. We understand how you feel. And then, my mom couldn't understand it. It caused a big strain on our relationship. And having her come to long COVID support group, I got permission to bring her, and they all shared with her their experience, and they were having the same symptoms that I was, and they were telling her, and I think it just really clicked. Like, it really clicked. But it's really hard on family. It's really hard on friends. It's very hard on relationships. I've lost so many friends, or I have friends that just don't talk to me anymore because I'm not well. I had to make a whole new set of friends. I literally had to reinvent my life.
Yeah, I think so many have. So if you're listening and how would somebody's listening that maybe is a caretaker or a friend of somebody they know that has long COVID, what would you say could be something they could do to support them?
I would say, just calling and asking them, how are you doing? I'm thinking of you. I'm praying for you. You need me to go to the store and pick up medication? Like, pick up their prescription for them. It could be something simple like just taking out their trash. Like, you don't have to clean their entire house or anything crazy, but it could literally simply be like, because they can't get up. They're exhausted or they're dealing with brain fog. So if they have somebody to help them mail a letter, write addresses on Christmas cards and mail them out, something that your brain is working and you can help them if they have a form they need filled out. I had people from my church come by and offer to just literally clean my living room because I was too tired and too exhausted to just clean it. And
Right.
I really am thankful for that. They just, lightly dusted it, organized, and put some things away because I couldn't physically do it. Taking out somebody's trash, I have a neighbor and she knows that I struggle. I had a really hard struggle with taking out the trash. So she would take the trash out for me. She would take the bin and put it up. Things like that, just show them love, empathy, and compassion and patience. It requires a lot. It can be testing when you made plans and you want to go out and your family member is like, look, I know we made plans 3 weeks ago or 3 months ago, but I'm just not feeling well.
Yeah.
You need to bargain on the fact that 9 times out of 10, they might have to cancel plans and reschedule because they just simply can't physically do it. It's nothing to do with you. But
Agreed.
that calling and checking on them and talking to them and texting them, that communication, that means the world to them.
Yeah, very true. Well, I love that. Well, I appreciate you coming and sharing those little nuggets and words of wisdom to help others in your situation. And I'm glad you're getting better. Just continue to get better. I pray for all the people in the world that are still suffering, and it makes everybody suffer, not just the one suffering, right? So we all suffer one way. I think COVID just affected the whole world at the same time. And we just all need to heal and be kind. Just be kind to people. I think that's a big message along with what you said, I would add. But thank you again. And we hope that, like, pretty soon you won't have any symptoms and you'll just, better's better is always what I say.
Yeah, I'm praying on it. I have my faith in God and I believe I will be healed. I don't know how long it will take. I don't know how many more obstacles I might have to get to a point, but I still hope and I still pray that I will get to a point where the fatigue is minimal and it's manageable, where we can get to the point of what we call fatigue management, where
Yes.
pacing, I can continue to pace, but I would love to go and work, in an office and go in maybe 2 days a week and actually see people and not feel flat out exhausted, or maybe able to walk through the whole mall 3 times. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
praying is we get to the point where my fatigue is under control.
Agreed. Yeah. And that's what's gotten a lot better on mine. But I have a long list of regimens that I do. So I'm just, again, better's better. So we'll just keep plugging along. But all right. Well, listeners, thanks again for joining us. Do you want anyone, I guess they could see you on that group if they go join, they could see you there, right? All
Yeah,
right.
you can find me on the Long COVID support group, and your posts are anonymous. It's a confidential group, so the group is private. It's not publicly, it's a private group. You join, you got to answer some questions. And if you do to the Zoom group, it's confidential. It's a Sunday meeting. Everything's confidential in that group. But yeah, you can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Facebook, and you can always, if you're dealing with long COVID, you just want someone to talk to, you can always reach out to me. You can always, literally, you can just always vent to me. I've been there. Sometimes you just sometimes you don't want people to give you a bunch of answers. You just want somebody to just listen and validate you. I've talked to over 200 people that have long COVID, so I understand.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Well, keep up the good work. And all right, everybody, it's time to close. We will see you on the next show. And we hope that you take some of these little nuggets that Hinda has shared with us and can use them. And until then, bye for now.
Our biggest dream and desire is to bring lasting impact to the lives of the millions experiencing long COVID effects and symptoms all across the world. Please join us. You can reach out to us at adventurebucketwish.org.